Well, it's good to see you. I'm going to check out and see if I can.
Okay, see you later for the Bean family call.
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Keep going.
Well, he was here, so we'll count him for attendance. So.
Okay.
Got everybody okay.
Drove here yesterday to pick him up at the airport last night.
Oh.
And I was about almost halfway here when he called and said his flight had been canceled, rescheduled for Monday night. There were several options with other airlines, but they were all involving an overnight stay in Dallas or Miami or somewhere. And he said, I'll just stay where I am. So
Probably more pleasurable where he is.
yeah, he's getting to do a lot more visits, seeing people he knows and wants to see again. So that's good.
Well, the worst not picking somebody up at the airport I ever had was when Lisa and the girls were coming back from Greece years ago, and they were flying military since he was in the military, Mark. So they could fly free into Philadelphia. So I borrowed my sister's station wagon and I got halfway across Philadelphia and stopped and called home because it was before cell phones. And Lisa called and they got bumped off their military flight by some generals. And so in London, I had to turn around and drive all the way back to Indiana. So they gave up and flew commercial to get the rest of the way. But it was like already driven like 8 hours to get Philly or Pennsylvania. And then
Evidently, somebody thought the generals are more important.
yeah. One flight, when they came back, the girls were wee little. They flew by themselves with an attendant. And Ashley, I think she was 6 when they came back, and she said, when I met him at the airport, she said, "Oh, Grandpa, there was this poor man on the flight from Athens to New York, and he was having a horrible time staying awake. So I sat and talked to him the whole way." Oh, that poor guy.
You're old. That's great. Sometimes we think we're helping, don't we?
Yes.
That's right. Little do we know.
Wonder what that story sounds like from his perspective.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd want to hear it.
It's hard to say. Might have been a blessing.
McConaughey's are looking for a good used car in case anyone knows one that might be available to them. They're borrowing a second car for now so that Katrina's not stuck at home all day while Sean's at work.
Hmm.
A little tricky to buy one nowadays.
Don't you still have a golf cart?
Yes, we do. That's right. She could go to the grocery on the golf cart.
Well, they need to, they could borrow our truck, short term, for a day or so. Never.
They have 2 pods with their items, with their belongings in it coming tomorrow. That includes his 7 boxes of books to take to the office.
Well, we have a big crowd here today. There's 6 of us.
Wow.
Ann and Nancy are here, and Lynn and Norma and Chip and I.
We'll probably be leaving a few minutes early today because the bell choir is going to play today.
Oh, good. Wow. Is that the whole congregation nowadays?
Over half, yes.
Uh-huh. Hope it goes well.
Steve and Lynn must be en route back.
I'm here, Dave.
Oh, you are?
I think Steve's gonna log on here in a little bit, at least he said he was.
Oh,
We got back about 3 o'clock yesterday.
okay. How was the trip back?
Exhausting, but we're home.
Trip back was good?
The trip was fine, it's just, way too much traffic and the roads are terrible. Just in bad repair, and, of course, the whole month of March is spring break, so there's extra traffic, and it was a grueling 3 days home, but we made it. And it was fun to see you while we were down there. I'm glad we were able to do that.
I'm glad that worked out.
John and Betty, are you looking for a pastor? Is that what's going on at Mooresville?
Yes.
We're in the process, yeah.
Oh,
Hi, Megan.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
I didn't know that Gary was leaving Mooresville or had left.
At the end of the pastoral year,
Okay.
I think he's retiring.
Oh, okay.
He's our age, Brent.
Oh, a young guy.
just see what he is.
I just want to say how sorry I am about Dan.
Yeah.
It's brokenhearted.
I think we all are. It's gonna leave a big hole at West Newton Friends. And everywhere else. Mhm.
I had a dream I would come out and visit you all in person and, he would be there.
How old was Dan?
Early 60s. Yeah, it was just odd as far as, you think of all he fought and won and how the new treatment was going so well for him. And then he gets COVID, and that was, his immune system was so weak. It was all complications from that.
When did he have COVID?
Well, let's see. It's like
Was it
two,
recent?
2 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago.
Last
Oh,
time he spoke, he told us that he had
Yeah,
it.
the last time he led worship, COVID then.
hmm.
And then he wasn't online for worship the next Sunday. And that's when Norma said, she sent me a note that he was in the hospital. So I checked with him and he had pericarditis, I don't know how to say it, which is an inflammation of the heart. And then, so he told me, he goes, well, I'll be in 2 days. And then talked to him the next day and said, so how are things going? And he said, well, now I have pneumonia, so I'll be in 9 days. So then I texted and I said, so are you better or worse today? And I didn't hear anything. And then the next day Kathy just called at noon and said that he had massive organ failures, was on dialysis round the clock, and had been intubated, and she was on her way to the airport to pick up Nick, and his mom was coming down, and Chris was coming down, and so all the kids and his mom and his brother were there when he passed. And once they got there, Kristen called and said, they're all here, we're gonna say goodbye. And later she said, I got a text from Kathy that he had passed.
Wow.
Yeah, it happened really fast.
He didn't have much stamina left, I don't think. His body had been fighting for 10 years, so
He was
didn't
just,
have much to fight with.
the Energizer Bunny is what Kristen and I kept talking about. He just would come back and come back and come back, and was always so positive. And
Yeah.
And what a miracle that last treatment was, you know, how much hope.
yeah,
It was working too.
Yeah.
well, he was worried after he got COVID that they said he could miss one treatment. And then he was gonna miss 2, and he was afraid he was gonna get kicked out of the trial
Oh, wow.
because of that. And so,
That's what they do.
yeah. Well, it is, I'm sorry,
Good morning, Jonathan Hubbard.
Jonathan.
Morning.
And
Well,
where
it
is
is,
your home? Has Jonathan introduced himself to us yet?
and he has before.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Where are you from, Jonathan?
I'm in London, Kentucky.
Ah,
Yeah, southeastern part of the state.
great. Welcome.
By way of announcements, of course, Dan's memorial service and calling will be here at the Meeting House next Saturday, starting at noon. The visitation with the families till 3. They're gonna have a slideshow up on the screen. Then at 3, the memorial service, we will have it Zoom for those who are at a distance. Those are all the details I know at this point. I will plan on talking with the family this afternoon. And originally, we planned to have monthly meeting next Sunday because of it falling on Easter Sunday, but I'm going to suggest we move it back to the 24th. For one, because Kristen is our treasurer, Dan's daughter. I don't think she needs to worry about getting a treasurer's report for us on short notice, you know, the day after her dad's memorial service. So we'll just move it back to the 24th if that's okay with friends. Is that okay with?
Brent, is there any way you think they could loop, I know I did this with another memorial service, loop those photos in for a few rounds before the beginning of the Zoom section of the memorial service so that those of us who are remote could see that too?
See if we can do that. We should be able to do that. So once I connect with Zoom, I should be able to share them with share screen. I'll do my best.
We can ask for no more, honey.
We've heard one of our sorrows, for sure. Are there other joys or concerns that friends would like to share this morning? I have a couple joys. One is Nancy and I celebrated our 33rd anniversary on yesterday. We celebrated on April Fool's Day because that's when we could get reservations at the restaurant. Of course, every day is kind of April Fool's Day for Nancy. the waitress asked her, how long have you two been married? And she just said 2, and she goes, 2 years? She goes, no, too long. I can't remember. Has no idea. I said, well, it's been 10 happy years. But she had a good time going out to eat, and of course was completely exhausted when we got home, but she had a good time. And then this morning I saw that my son Ben, he posted on Facebook that he was volunteer fireman of the year in Hachinohe, Japan this year. I think the kid who would not clean up his room or help mow the grass is being awarded for volunteer fireman of the year in a foreign country. And I was really proud of him. I think just very cool.
Well, I shared my joy of welcoming the McConaughey's to Plainfield and to my home, who will be the residents of my home now and for a while. We don't know how long. We're leaving that up to them and the will of God. But you're really going to like them, and they're going to be such good leaders. And Sean has already done so much homework and knows so many people and their names and has gotten acquainted with so much. And he's been on meetings with Della and Sue and I many times to get oriented toward his work. And he's just really going to be a top-notch person to be our leader. It was not easy for me to rearrange my house and put my past lifetime on the shelf, stored away in a box, but that's what we had to do.
I have selected as our centering music today to honor Dan. We know how much he loved nature. He liked to watch birds building a nest on a windowsill. He liked to watch spider webs being built by the spiders outside the window. We all know how much he liked to garden. And we've all been recipients of tomatoes and watermelon. And we know he loved cats. So the music that I selected is For the Beauty of the Earth.
Let's continue our centering, and Chip is the worship leader this morning, so he'll speak out of silence as he feels led. Well, I got a call from Troy this morning wanting to know how I was doing and was I ready to give my message. And I said, you're not going to believe this, but I got stage fright. I just was real nervous about coming back and speaking in public. I mean, my friends are here, but I was just real nervous and I thought, what's wrong with me? When Norma messaged me and said that Dan couldn't do the message today, well, I'd already knew he was going to be here for the message, and I called my cousin and I said, I need to have all my hair cut off. Because I cut it off in the spring, and Dan always has some funny remark about, I cut it off too soon, and it's too short, and it's too cold. And he goes, is your head cold? And I'm like, yes, it's cold, and yes, it's cold now. And I was kind of, when Norma said, could I do the message for him because he couldn't be here, I said, sure. And Troy says to me, you almost had an anxiety attack the last time when you only had a week to do your message. How can you possibly do it? And I said, well, I already know what I'm going to talk about. And if God can create the world and everything on it in 6 days, I surely should be able to come up with a message. Well, it was more difficult than I thought. Then I got here and thought I brought the wrong script with me. In fact, I did. It's not double spaced like I like to read it, so maybe that will cause me to slow down a bit because I keep getting told I talk too fast. When Norma messaged me last Monday and asked if I could do the message for today because Dan was sick, I said I would be happy to. Little did I know it would go along with my message for today. How is God using you? In my message for March, I told how I suffer from anxiety, how things in the world were never going as I thought they should, and I ended with my last loss of faith. Where was God? I felt really lost and worthless, like I had no real purpose in life. Oh, sure, I look after my immediate family, all 4 of them, but everybody does that. That's just part of my job. But I really felt that something was missing. It reminded me of being in a show at Footlight Musicals, and I went in rehearsals and went backstage and was talking to my friend Libby. And I said, isn't this the most fun show? And she said, no. It seemed to her that a member of the chorus, all she was there for was to take up space. That really surprised me. The chorus does a lot more than take up space. They are a vital part of any show, so I'm sorry she didn't see that. But like Libby back then, I was kind of feeling the same thing in real life now. I had reached out to my cousins as he and his wife were having a really rough time and asked if I could do something. They said, why don't you join us for lunch? We had a great time and laughed a lot. I was able to talk about my dilemma that I had. You see, I have done several messages on everything I have learned about the Bible I've learned from the movies. When I did my anti-war message, it seemed like all films that had helped influence my whole idea about what could really happen in a nuclear war suddenly appeared on TV. It was almost like God wanted me to watch these old films that could help me with my message.
Now, here was my dilemma. Why did God send me movies to help me with my messages and yet not answer the prayers of those in harm's way? To me, that made no sense. My cousin explained to me that people get connected to God in all kinds of ways. If I feel I'm getting messages from movies, I should not question it, but follow through and look for the meaning. Now, here is the part that made my day. As we were leaving the restaurant after lunch, I was told that I was invited because they loved me and they needed someone that would make them laugh. Wow. Someone needed me. It was good to be needed. I know Quakers are really good about sitting with someone and saying nothing, just being there to comfort, no words are needed. And with me, being a song and dance man, it was with great joy that they showed their love by making them laugh. Guess what I discovered? God was using me. A little side note. I love sharing my love with movies with others. Troy comes down the hill from his house frequently to watch them with me. I try to get him interested in old films. That evening, before Troy came down from his house, I had a talk with God. The conversation kind of went like this, me to God. You sit there on the sofa and I will calmly talk to you. No shouting, no telling you what I see as problems in the world, and no more yelling at you because you let a sparrow die, or mad because you didn't zap someone or turn them into a pillar of salt. You send me messages over the TV. That was our agreement. Seemed like a good idea to me. I shared that with Troy when he arrived. He was receptive, but pointed out that it might not be a good idea to set God down and tell him how things should be done. He is God after all. Anyway, with the Oscars fast approaching, Troy wanted to see all the Best Pictures nominated films, one of which contained a reference to the Bible verse. Wow, I thought, God works fast. He sent me a movie already. It hadn't even been 24 hours. I was open and ready to receive my message from him. Well, the only thing I got out of the movie was that I needed to look up Psalm 22:20 and get some answers. I sure hoped it wasn't predicting the end of the world or something. So the next day I pulled up on the computer to see just what was being talked about. Now the exact phrase referred in the movie made no sense to me at all. Well, it kind of went along with the entire movie, because I didn't understand it either. But when I read the entire psalm, beginning with, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why hast thou so far from helping me and from the words of my roaring? Now, I did feel forsaken by God, and you sure could hear me roar when I ran across a dead animal or see injustice in the world. I get upset when things are not going the way that I think they should. I was recently watching a movie, Nicholas in Alexandria. It's about Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia, and his family. It's about the fall of the Romanov dynasty. It's a film that Putin should have watched, as he is making the same mistakes the Tsar and his rich Roman relatives made, and Putin and his rich oligarchs are making now. The very same mistakes. Nicholas was out of touch with what was going on around him. He had no idea how bad the Russian people had it, no idea what the poor people had to do to stay alive, nor did he care. He was not any good at commanding his army. In fact, he had no idea what the generals were doing or exactly where they were. And once again, we see that people that do not learn from history are bound to repeat it. So I am looking forward to the day when the Russian people overthrow this evil dictator, but I digress. Now, what really stood out to me in the film was the character Rasputin, a rather eccentric monk that became very close to Nicholas in Alexandria. He caused a lot of problems with the family and the country. Now, in one scene, Rasputin is being questioned about how and why he was doing God's work. He replied, "God uses me." Wow. I never thought about being used by God. So maybe when I was shouting at him about the dead sparrow, I should have thought that maybe I really didn't put out enough food for the birds. Rather than yelling at God, I should roll up my sleeves and do something. I want God to use me. I just hoped I didn't come across as a mad Quaker from Mars Hill. Then Thursday, I had writer's block and had no idea how to tie things up and end my message. As God would have it, the movie for the evening was the original Death on the Nile, an Agatha Christie play that was turned into a movie. I was in that play at the Black Curtain Dinner Theater many moons ago. I wasn't originally cast in the show, but my friend Vicki had gotten a job offer in LA and needed to leave right then and there. I joined the cast, which was still in rehearsal, and had a great time doing the run of the show. Some of my best parts in shows were I filled in for someone else. I was happy to fill in for Vicki so she could go to a better place and a booming career. And now I'm honored to fill in for Dan as he has gone on to a better place. My favorite message that Dan gave was about food. He had just gone to a state fair and had tried all kinds of food. Some sweet, some mild, and some pretty spicy. His question was, what if your words work the same way? You say nice things and you have a sweet taste in your mouth. But if you say bad things, your mouth would burn. I was so impressed, and even after a couple of years, I think about that message of Dan's often. Let's all honor Dan by trying to make sure that the things we say are sweet tasting in our mouth. I'm grateful to learn the ways God is using me. How is God using you? I would like to close with something that Betty Barda from the Unity Truth Center will always end her message with. May the light of God surround you. May the love of God enfold you. May the power of God protect you. And may the presence of God watch over you. For wherever you are, God is.
Let's continue with a period of unprogrammed worship. We know there are friends who need to depart, and we pray God's blessings on you as you do. If you can return for Sunday school, we will be discussing Samson and Delilah this morning. Blessings on all, and let's continue our worship.
can think of a number of times as I look back on life, that Dale or I or Dan, a number of people who have stepped forward in a way that they didn't expect to, and found out later that it was that they felt that God had called them to a certain place at a certain time to be with certain people, and that we really are important, and sometimes we don't know it. Think of the time that John Mahanji had asked me to go to Kenya to hand over the leadership of Friends United meeting publicly to Colin Saxon, because the African leaders needed to see that kind of a handover of leadership. But I got ready to get on the plane, and they wouldn't let me on. My passport had, they said, the reason they said, and I've never heard of this before or since, the reason they used was that my passport had no pages left to stamp visas in, and I had to get a new passport. There were 4 or 5 empty pages at the end of my passport, but they said that those were for other documents and visas weren't allowed on those pages. And so I thought that was kind of a strange thing, but I had no choice. And so during the time that I was home, when I should have been in Africa, that was when Dan Berger's brother died in a diving accident in Belize. And one of the hardest things he's ever had to deal with, and there's just no reason for why that had to have happened. And I was in a place and a time and available then to be with Dan and go to Goshen and attend the service and be with family, and just kind of say, okay, God was using me in a way that I had no idea what was going to happen. So I appreciate Chip's message with asking the question, how is God using you? How is he going to use you? How are you going to be sensitive to those times when we're needed? And I appreciate it. Thank you, Chip.
Are all hearts clear?
Thank you, Chip, for your message. It was very meaningful.
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you. Thank you, Chip and Sylvia too.
Well, we'll adjourn meeting and hope to see you next Sunday, if not in Sunday school, and or at Dan's memorial service if you are able to attend. So blessings on you in this week, and farewell.
May God be with you.
Chip, it's fun to watch you